Yes, my friends, welcome back. In today's latest reports, we talk all things Mauricio Pochettino as we learn for his plans to assess the squad during pre-season and certain key players he's going to rely upon to help enforce his tactical ideas. To end things, we discuss the transfer targets that Pochettino ideally wants to sign for us, 4 big names, and I'll discuss the players that Pochettino wants to sign for us to improve the quality of this first team. So my friends, right now we've got a ton of things to break down and discuss. Next week's going to be entirely about Mauricio Pochettino, from tactics to lineups to all that good stuff. So make sure you guys have those bell notification buttons set on BlueLionsTV. If you like today's video, if you're liking the appointment of Pochettino, then hit that like button, my friends. And without wasting any more time, let's start things off and let's talk Mauricio Pochettino assessing the quality of the squad during pre-season. Right now, we have some ideas behind certain players Pochettino is going to rely upon and wants to work with, of course, to help kickstart his new ideas. And those players are Reece James, Ben, Enzo, Fofana, and Mason Mount, who he's hoping the club are going to find an agreement with to get him tied down to a new deal. Of course, this makes a lot of sense if you understand the type of football that Pochettino likes to play. He wants to rely upon energy, pressing, work rate. And if you have a fast defence with a powerful midfield and a fast attack as well too, well, that gives a manager like Pochettino a lot to work with and a lot to make happen. Knowing how Pochettino likes his fullbacks to be high and wide, I think Ben and Reece James are some of the best fullbacks in the country. They have goal threat, they defend well 1v1, and they're very good at helping you progress the ball forwards. Of course, players like Mount and Enzo Fernandez, I feel like Pochettino, he could help make Enzo Fernandez one of the best midfield players of his generation. That's what I'm hoping for, and I'm really curious to see if he's going to have him playing a more deeper role, helping to facilitate the play and be more a playmaker, or if he is going to use Enzo in a more box-to-box role, which he also excels in. Because with a player like Enzo, what separates him is that he's very complete, playing in many different roles in midfield, and for me, this is why he is worth the money, because technically on paper, he can be any midfield player you want him to be, depending where you use him. And of course, how is Mason Mount not going to be part of Pochettino's plans? I feel like Mount just suits this guy down to a T, from the work rate to the tactical awareness and intelligence, how he helps get goals and assists, set piece threats, and of course just how he helps facilitate the play, because this guy is like a very good team player to have in your team. And I'm hoping now with the seal of approval from like Pochettino, the sporting directors as well, that these guys find a new deal for Mason Mount. So that's some ideas behind the squad. Of course, let's discuss more things around the squads involving guys like Hudson-Odoi and Ian Maatsen. In particular with Hudson-Odoi, Pochettino wants to assess him first in pre-season this summer. But there's a massive possibility that Hudson-Odoi most likely is set to leave. But Pochettino wants to see how guys like him, Ian Maatsen and a few others do first. And before we end things, it does seem like tons of young players are set to be leaving on loan, because Pochettino believes that if you're at a certain age playing for a big club, game time is the most important thing. So in my opinion, expect Chukwuemeka to be leaving on loan next season, with a few other players on top to follow. And I think that's the best thing for their development. I think they have long contracts here that can be assessed again in the future. But I think just regularly playing is a key thing. And personally, I would love if like Carnes went to Brighton next season, because they're one of those clubs where it's just like you're going to get a great footballing education. You'll become a better player. You're going to learn a lot more. And I kind of feel like game time now is what Carnes needs to start focusing a lot more. So it does seem that players like Malang Sarr and Amplu, for example, are surplus requirements at this point in time. And of course, finally, one player that Pochettino, as we already know, wants to hold direct talks with is Romelu Lukaku. Now, in the past 10 games, Lukaku has got 6 goals, 4 assists, and won 3 Man of the Match awards. Yesterday, he scored a double against Sassuolo. I think the first, second goal being like a great shot from outside the box. And again, Lukaku fits what Pochettino likes, a guy who has Prem experience, that has that leadership qualities and abilities. Now, I think we all kind of know that ideally Lukaku prefers to remain now at Inter Milan, where he's very comfortable and content there. And now that he's finding his full fitness and form, he's showing why he's one of the best strikers in Europe. I felt like he got tons of criticism here. It was very unfair during his time here. I still don't think Thomas Tuchel really helped him get back to his full game. And it was even in little things like, why is Lukaku one of the best pen takers in Europe not taking penalties straight away and instead is going to guys like Jorginho? little details like that are going to undermine the capabilities of your forwards. And, you know, for me, if I was in Lukaku's shoes, I would be equally frustrated as well. So now that Pochettino's here, it's brand new rules right now. So it's down to Pochettino to persuade Lukaku, you know, come back to me, play for me. You're going to be a guy I rely upon. And if Lukaku is just wants to remain in Italy, we're going to go towards other targets and other strikers, because for sure, we definitely want to sign a striker regardless of the situation around Romelu Lukaku. And I guess this segues in very nicely now to the final report and the big report today, where we discuss the main transfer targets and candidates that Pochettino wants to sign to help rebuild his Chelsea team. Now, we've known for time, goalkeeper, DM, striker, they're the main positions we're looking for, and potentially another midfield player on top. I'm guessing that's going to depend on the players that we decide to sell, or depends on like the players who receive the best offers from outside clubs. So in terms of those key positions, we have the names right now. In terms of those key positions, we have those names now. Lautaro Martinez, McAllister of Brighton, Declan Rice, as well as Emi Martinez of Aston Villa. Now, I'm going to share some quick thoughts and opinions now. I feel like, of course, these targets are like the number one targets, like in a dream window. These are the guys who would sign instantly, but come on, reality has to also factor in, right? I mean, if West Ham are quoting figures like 120 million for Declan Rice, with other candidates available in the market, it wouldn't make any sense for me to make a move for Declan Rice for that price. I think the guy is like an elite defensive midfield player, but for that type of price, he's not worth more than Enzo, in my opinion. And of course, guys like Lautaro Martinez, you know, Inter Milan are coming out stating that they see Martinez being like the next great Inter Milan captain. He's also very settled in Milan as well too. So, you know, it'll be very hard to try and persuade him to sign for us. So what I'm trying to say is that as the window goes on, don't be surprised if we do sign some of our second targets who are also going to be of like incredible qualities. But these are the ideal guys we prefer to sign to boost the quality of the first 11. That is the main thing Pochettino wants to do. Not boost the squad now, boost the quality of the first 11. So let's start with Lautaro Martinez. Now, if you guys have been watching me for a long time, you know, I was talking about this guy when he was playing in Argentina. I've always been a massive fan of him. I saw him as like a Aguero regen in that sense. And I think this season he's had another spectacular season at Inter Milan. And as you guys have seen with the FBref reports, you know, look at just how complete this guy is. Like, I understand completely why Pochettino ideally would prefer to go for Martinez up front over anyone else. Osimhen is world class, and I'm sure Pochettino would work with him. But I see him as more like an advanced forward who, like, you know, runs the channels in behind, and you know, he plays on the last line a bit more. But with Martinez, he's more of like a deep lying guy that can drop into the hole in spaces. And in that sense, there's a lot of similarities profile-wise with him and Harry Kane. You know, another guy who is that facilitator for like pacey wide forwards outside of him. And I think that is the same type of attacking balance now that Pochettino is trying to build at this football club, with like great supportive runs coming from like box-to-box mids, which for me, that's what I've wanted to see. I've always felt like this is the team we really are at heart. And maybe I'm very sentimental based on how we used to play during the end of the 2000 periods and the early, 2010 periods. But for me, that's been the most successful football I've seen at this football club. And I feel like we have the profiles to make it happen now. I think Martinez is going to be incredibly hard to secure though. I think so many factors we need to have in our favour. Inter Milan probably can't win the Champions League. Inter Milan would have to not get Champions League football for next season. And that would really make Inter sweat. So if big offers were coming in for Martinez, they couldn't just categorically ignore them. But at the same time, with clubs like Inter, if the money is right, I don't think anyone is off the books for them. And if you give the right money, maybe Lukaku's been offered in a player exchange plus money, who knows what could happen. But I think, honestly, Martinez for me would be a world-class player for us to have. Listen, he'll probably never get you like 40 goals a season or anything crazy like that. But you're going to get tons of goals and tons of assists. And if you want your whole squad from wide guys and midfield players to also get goals, they're going to want to have a focal point like Martinez who can drop deeper to link up the play, run in behind, create shots for himself, for his teammates, scores all types of goals. He has no weaknesses with his shooting technique. I don't think you're going wrong with a guy like this, in my personal opinion, and he would probably be like my number one if I could sign someone. So that's the first target out of the way. Let's now move on to discussing Declan Rice. Now moving on to another interesting target, that is McAllister of Brighton. Now we know that nearly every big club in this country wants him. You know, Liverpool, us, Spurs, Man United, and I think that's for very good reason. You know, since signing him from Argentinos Junior for like 8 million at the time, in 2019, McAllister has shown that he's a very unique type of player because he is very effective in many roles in midfield. I mean, he can play in a pivot, he can play in a midfield 3, he can play as a number 10. And this season in particular, you know, 10 goals, 1 assist. He's really highlighting the improvements in his game in terms of changing the game with his goals now. I mean, look how he enters the box. Look at his shooting technique outside the box. There's not many weaknesses he really has in this game. And I don't know if he necessarily comes in to be an instant first team player. Could that be dependent on Mason Mount leaving? We don't know right now. But if there are set to be more changes made in the squad, to have a player like McAllister in the squad in general over like a long season, I think could be shrewd business. And one thing I really like about McAllister is his technique, especially his passing technique, because he plays those types of passes that, you know, we don't really see too often at this football club, those defense splitting passes. They're in the form of like through balls over the top, you know, passes between the lines, taking out opponents. And he highlights that creativity to great effect for this Brighton team. But on top of that too is his tactical awareness. He knows how to defend off the ball, and that's one thing managers really want their players to have in abundance, to be fair with you. And that's why he can play in a multitude of roles in midfield. Another great things about his game is his intelligence. He's a very clever type of player, but he thinks one move ahead. And in particular when he's receiving on the half turn, you know, that half turn skill allows you to open the game up a lot more. It allows him to then play the next pass. And he's one of those like combo players. He's the type of guy that helps kickstart those combo team moves. And in my opinion, for the big clubs like us, you need to have that type of, you know, passing weapon in your game. Break down these low blocks in these defensive teams, which at times we can fall victim to these guys because our passing becomes very predictable. And this is what guys like McAllister could bring if they are introduced to the squads. I think he had a very good relationship alongside Enzo Fernandez at the World Cup. And I guess there's a lot of Argentine players that Pochettino is hoping he can use his influence on to sign for this football club. And to be fair with you with these names, they're names I wouldn't really say no to. At the same time though, we've also signed this guy called Christopher Nkunku. And I know it's quite easy to only see him as like only a striker, only an attacking mid. But Nkunku is different. He's special. He's played in nearly every position in midfield, between the attacking lines, up front as well too. And to be honest, he is one of those guys that can play many positions to a very high standard and role. So for a lot of the things that McAllister could bring to this team, could Nkunku not bring those same things? And it's going to be very interesting to see how Pochettino plans to use Nkunku for next season. Now, Declan Rice, I mean, I always knew this guy was set to become an elite defensive midfield player in the Premier League. And I just think, again, even though West Ham have had a very poor season, he has been another shining beacon for that club. I kind of feel like the online discourse with Declan Rice, you know, there's so much conflation and misunderstanding, and it simply boils down to this. You know, one group doesn't like this guy, another group gets defensive, and it's just like this non-stop recycled conversation between both parties. And at the end of the day, it's not even really about the player anymore. It's more about getting one over your online enemy, which kind of sums up just how toxic social media can be at times. But for people that are outside the bubble and don't fall in those stupid categories, you see the guy for who he is. And Declan Rice is a very intelligent defensive player. I think you notice that in terms of his interceptions, and that tells you how he reads the game to snuff out danger. I want my DM to be very preventative. I think that's like one of the key things I want to see. But on top of that, it's how this guy's intelligence in defending is constantly on show. Like how he shows the opposition teams on counterattacks into like less dangerous areas through things like his body shape and positioning. You know, he has the legs to keep up with most players. He has the intelligence to be in the right position at the right time. He can help you play forward. He's had some of the best switch balls in the league, in my opinion. And that little bonus he has in his game is that ability to just change the speed of a game up, where he can just like receive a ball and then carry it like 50 yards, 60 yards up the field to create a goal-scoring action. That's what separates him from guys like Ndidi and others, in my opinion. That's what the top players have. They have more weapons in their arsenal compared to other guys in their same positions. And Declan Rice, we haven't had a profile potentially like him since Nemanja Matic, and I think with that sense of physicality, leadership, plus great technique, and most importantly, high defensive IQ. You don't have to like the guy, but you can't discredit him for having poor defensive IQ yet. If we could make something happen, who knows, but he would be a great player to add in this team. So my friends, on that note, I'm going to wrap things up, keep things moving. Thank you for watching. Share your thoughts and opinions on these targets. Who do you want to see? Who do you not want to see? And on that note, I'm NEFC. This is BlueLionsTV. Catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.